Good afternoon, everyone. This is Stefan, and Jack, are you on the call as well?
I sure am, Stefan. It's good to see you.
Hi, Jack. Good afternoon, everybody. This is going to be our Fireside Friday chats. It's going to be just nice and short. We will have a different topic every week. We'll try and talk about the topical activities of the week, what's important. We'll keep it to 15 minutes. We're doing this live. I'm coming from Hawaii, and Jack's coming from Austin. And we thought that this week we would try and give you our perspective of the economy. There's been a lot of talk of COVID. We don't want to spend too much time on that. But Jack and I had a quick conference call yesterday to talk to each other to say what our different viewpoints are about what the impact is going to be. So Jack, why don't we just start? What's your view? What's the economy going to do for the rest of the year?
Well, I think short term, it's a huge impact. I mean, that's, as you and I discussed right now, people are not able to work. And so that obviously has an enormous impact on consumer spending, on what people are doing every day to day. So I think short term, big impact. I think as soon as we have figured out where this thing is headed and how long it's going to last and what's going to happen, I think people are going to come back out again, and they're going to, we're going to pick up life. I'm not going to say exactly right where we left off, but I think people will want to continue life as before. And I don't see the underlying fundamentals changing for the average American.
I tend to agree with you. I'll maybe put it a little bit harsher, as I sometimes do, colorful. I think Q2 is going to be ugly. So I think just the fact that we have so many people staying at home, of course, for obvious reasons, for good reasons, nobody's trying to talk the virus down. But at the same time, I do feel as if the media is probably exaggerating everything a little bit. Again, we're not diminishing the impact of virus. We're not diminishing the impact of quarantine. We're not saying that you shouldn't be careful for your health. Of course you should. But we've had viruses before in the world. I mean, we've had the swine and the avian and the bird and the pig and the Hong Kong and the Asian and the Ebola. I mean, we've had a lot of those. And in all cases, the society, community has been able to power through those. So I also think that the economy is strong. And as we get through Q2, I think Q3 is going to be good. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that people that, specific to our industry, people that wanted to buy and sell, they still want to do that, right? And when they can go back into their jobs, they are going to have income again to spend. They're going to want to continue the spending patterns and behaviors that they've become used to. So that doesn't go away in the context of post coronavirus.
Yep. So I think the message from Jack and me on this one specific point, and we'll walk on to the next one, is don't let, in our opinion, the doomsday sayers get into your head. This is not end of times. This is, yes, it's serious. Yes, it's global. And sometimes you would say that a recession is managed by or identified by speed and impact and longevity. I think we have the impact. I think we have the speed, but I don't think we have the longevity here. I think this virus is going to run its course, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, as we approach into summer. And I really feel we might not be back to normal in 3 months, but I think we'll be over what we're talking about now in 2 to 3 months, and we'll be rapidly on our way to a strong summer and a great Q3.
It's great. Yeah.
So why don't you put that a little bit in context? I know that you and I have spoken a little bit about, I survived the Hong Kong virus of 68 when we were living there. And prior to that, some of those other viruses, and even, many people say that the coronavirus we have now is just part of a regular flu string. It's just a new enhanced string. I'm not sure I remember all the letters. What is it? H1D537. There are numbers attached to it. But
yeah, it's clear that this is worse than the normal flu. It is. Wow. It's more lethal. It puts people in the hospital more often. It is more dangerous. So I think all of that's clear. If you're paying attention to the media, that's what's out there.
But we've been able to contain it so well, generally speaking. Again, I understand that of course, Italy and Spain and in some places in the US, like New York and Washington, which have been hit harder. But I think the containment, which was enforced, whether that was the president or the CDC or the World Health Organization, the enforcement was so successful, generally speaking, that the numbers are dismally small compared to regular flu. I mean, we always have.
Yeah, and especially given the size of our country, that how many people we're talking about here.
I mean, the regular flu usually hits, what is the numbers? I was looking up the numbers just now. It it could hit in a year, a few 100 million people. And flu deaths per year, they say, sometimes ranges between 300,000 to 600,000 per year. And at the moment, we're probably, 1%, 2%, 3% of that number.
Yeah, we're much smaller, 2.5%, I think, of the numbers that flu normally sees globally. So it is, like you said earlier, the media has a lot to talk about right now, and it is a scary disease, right? But the actual impact is not, it isn't as broad based as what we see annually with other infectious diseases.
And I'm not a big fan of politicians, and T3 will always remain neutral. So whether you're more left or more right, it doesn't really matter to us at all. But I remember one of the politicians, and it doesn't matter who said it, it's not important, but the person said, is the cure worse than the disease? So, is the quarantine and the impact that it has, T3, we closed all of our offices, what was it, about 10 days ago? So just working from home sounds great, but it's hard to run a business. What's happened to real estate, do you think, Jack?
Well, real estate, we've seen because of the local rules passed by governors or cities or counties, that's where we're seeing the local regulation, the local leadership. It really depends on that. And in some places, we're locked down. In some places, there's no real estate transactions. There's no in-person meetings. I know here in Austin, Texas, we're on a mandatory lockdown. There's a $1,000 fine if you're out conducting non-essential business. And so in those places, that puts the kibosh on a lot of real estate activity. You're not going to do an open house. You're probably not going to go meet people to list their home. You're probably not going to be showing buyers. But it's a patchwork. I know you and I have been talking to brokers and people all over the country all week, and it really depends on what the local leadership's decided to do and how much they've decided to respond in a preventative way to keep people safe.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the labor market still remains tight. Inflation is well contained and constrained. Inflation rates are low. Interest rates are low. The federal deficit, it's widening. It's too high in my opinion, but that's a different discussion for another day. But I think that the consumer spending has maybe dropped because we know why. I don't know if we're spending on toilet rolls, right? But we're spending money on different things. We're sitting at home. But I think as soon as these things are over, can we be back to normal pretty quickly? I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. This is one where, again, the numbers look really scary. And I think the press can make a lot of hay of saying, hey, yes, 3.3 million people filed for unemployment last week. But what did we think was going to happen? We sent everyone home and told them they could not work. And many, many people work in jobs where they have to go to a physical location in order to do their work. So, of course, they filed for unemployment. But that's not a good indicator of the overall health of the economy. I mean, that's an event. That isn't the overall economy. As soon as shops open up again, restaurants open again, retail opens up again, those people are going to go back to work. And the consumer spending, we're coming off a high point of consumer spending. The last 5 years, we've gone up $10,000 in annual average consumer spending for about $50,000 a year to $60,000. We did $61,000 a year in 2018. 2019 is a similar number. And so there's demand. People want to go do things. They want to spend money. So I think this short-term impact looks really terrible, but it's a little misleading because when you lock people in at home, they're not going to spend money and they're not going to work. So it's no surprise.
Yeah, we shouldn't confuse short-term impact with long-term impact. Two different things, right?
Yeah.
If we can get everything under control in the next 30, 60, 90 days, we could slide into a bounce back in Q3. And I wonder, I think maybe a 2% GDP growth for this year is maybe still possible if we can control it.
So. Yeah, I think it is still possible just based on where we started from. And if we take, let's say 4.5 or 5 months during this slowdown period out, we might have done 3%. So now we're at 2. So that's not terrible. It's not awesome, but it's not terrible. It's reasonable growth.
So maybe we have some setback in Q2 on the real estate market. What do you think, Jack? Are we maybe going 20% or 30% decline in this quarter? And then we can maybe make it up in the third quarter. So maybe the end of the year, what do you think the overall decline might be? Would we be able to?
That's a great question. We've talked to a lot of brokers. Most of the markets we talked to, especially the larger markets, had an incredible February and we're entering a very strong March. So a lot of those transactions are still closing. So, Q2 is not entirely lost. But I think there's probably 6 to 8 weeks of Q2 where the activity levels are going to drop. Showing Time published some really great stats showing the showing numbers dropping off and how there's just not many people showing houses right now. So what that's going to do is it's going to take that probably 50 or 60% of the transactions that were supposed to happen in Q2, and it's going to shift them into Q3 and Q4. There will be some breakage because there will be some people who maybe can't go back to work, but that's what's going to happen. So I think we're going to see a 20 to 25% fall off just because the transactions got shifted back, and some are going to get kicked into 2021 because of this.
I agree with that. I do think if we have a 20 or 30% decline maybe in past pieces of Q2, and we can pick most of that back up in Q3, we might have an overall decline of the year. And you guys know I hate making predictions because you can only be wrong. There's no intention of being right. The Trends Report never tries to make predictions, but looking at the more likely scenario, and of course, if we pick whoever we pick as president, however long we take to curtail the virus, are all factors that are going to still have a ripple impact. And if the Southern Hemisphere gets hit in the winter season when they have winter, when we have summer up here in the Northern Hemisphere, it might give us some international problems. But if we can maybe end the year, instead of doing a 6 million transaction, we end up with, what do you think, Jack? Maybe low fives, maybe 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4.
Yeah.
That'll still be a good year. That's way away from us.
That's still a very good year, especially coming off of the trough, the low point of 4.4 after the housing recovery. That was our worst year, was 4.4 million transactions. If we do 5.2 or 5.3 million transactions, that's still season adjusted for over time. That's still a lot of transactions for everybody in the real estate industry. So.
And guys, this is not just an optimistic talk because for the sake of giving optimism, you know that T3 and especially myself, we put our feet very, very firmly on the ground, and we try to be as logical, fair, objective, statistic-based as we possibly can. Of course, there's a lot of unknowns here that we don't know, but I have in the last just week spoken to maybe about a half a dozen CEOs of some of our largest companies in the country. And although they are all a little concerned, they are all taking strong, cautionary, precautionary steps to try and make sure that they do what has to be done. And I think that the country overall is reacting in a very formidable and powerful way. So I think that we really have the pandemic, dare I say so, and I'm not in government and I'm not in the medicine, I dare to say I think we have the pandemic under control, that it might not really get too bad. So I think that's good. I knew you were pulling up some showing time statistics for me, which I'd asked you to do. Did you get those numbers in time for this call?
Yeah, I did. They did it. Again, credit to Showing Time for doing a nice job here. They're showing, change from same time last year. We've had a 53% drop in showings year over year. So that's pretty substantial from where we should be. So that's about half the showings that we would normally expect are not happening. Now, that doesn't mean no showings are happening.
Yeah.
So,
but that is largely impact as a result of most recent decline, right? It's not
for sure. That is in the last, really, Stefan. That's in the last 14 days. So we were tracking the 2019 numbers, right on pace where we were last year, and that drop off just happened as soon as everybody got locked down. As soon as the governors and county officials locked us down, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. It's the same issue with unemployment. People go, well, a lot of people file for unemployment. Yeah, we sent them home. So of course showings are not happening. We're locking down counties. We're locking down cities and municipalities. So yeah, there's not going to be showings.
If you guys, as we try and wrap up here, because we want to try and stay on time always, as we are very punctual. I think the definition of a recession for me is a large impact that occurs rapidly and is sustained over a period of time. And here, yes, we have large. Clearly, COVID-19 is global. Clearly, it has a significant impact, but I don't think it's sustainable. I think it's relatively short. And as you said, it's largely because we asked people to stay home. So I'm a firm believer that I think that this is not going to be a long-term push into recession. I think we are going to make it through the year. We wish you all, from T3's point of view, a wonderful balance of the year. We'll be talking to you every week. We won't be talking about this again next week. Jack and I will pick a completely new topic that we think is relevant. We'll keep it at 15 minutes. We're going to make it short and crisp. We don't really prepare for these calls, although Jack and I do have one call quickly before the time just to cover the topics we're going to discuss. Just to remind you, we also now on Tuesdays have Tactical Tuesdays. That's with our whole consulting team. Jack has a group of about 9 people that report to him on our consulting team. They will be talking on Tuesdays for about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer than this call. It will be 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific, and they're going to be talking more about tactical things that you can execute. Coming up on this Tuesday is going to be how to control expenses in a declining market and how to keep your agent productivity at a high level. So T360.com/Tactical Tuesdays. And Jack and I will be back next Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 Pacific again for 15 minutes, fireside chat from his home in Austin and my second home in Hawaii. Thank you all. Jack, some wishes from your side?
Stay safe, stay healthy.
All right, guys, take care. Have a wonderful Friday. Thank you to my team for putting this together. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye now.